In early M31, as the Great Crusade came to its end, 9 of the 18 Space Marine legions would turn against the Emperor of Mankind, choosing to ally themselves with the traitorous War Master, Horus Lupercal. This act of treachery would lead to one of the greatest and bloodiest conflicts in recorded human history, one that would become known within historical records as the Horus Heresy. These traitor Astartes would turn against the Emperor for a variety of reasons, such as misguided anger, petty spite, the promises of material gain, or out of a simple misplaced belief in a greater Imperium for the betterment of mankind. The warriors of these traitor legions would, over time, begin to transform into twisted and corrupted parodies of the proud and noble Legione Astartes, eventually becoming known to the Imperium as Chaos Space Marines. Of these 9 legions, 4 in particular would earn the blessings and patronage of the Chaos Gods, the World Eaters, Death Guard, Emperor's Children, and the Thousand Sons. The World Eaters would earn themselves the favour of Khorne, the god of bloodshed and slaughter, while the Death Guard would receive the blessings of Nurgle, the god of decay and disease. The Emperor's Children would become devout followers of Slaanesh, the god of hedonism and excess, while the Thousand Sons would become the chosen of Tzeentch, the god of magic and fate. The Primarchs of these legions in turn would receive the ultimate reward from their patron gods, becoming transformed into powerful entities known as Demon Princes. Some legions, however, such as the Word-Bearers, would dedicate themselves to the concept of Chaos Undivided, paying equal reverence to each of the Ruinous Powers, while others, such as the Night Lords, would remain unaligned to any of these deities, though certain individuals from such legions may choose to seek their favour. However, while the warriors that followed Horus may be amongst the most infamous of the Imperium's foes, they are far from being the only traitor Astartes to exist within the galaxy, as certain individuals, squads, or even entire chapters of loyalist space marines may turn themselves from the Emperor's light. Such warriors may become little more than pirates or mercenaries, seeking to serve no particular master but themselves in their pursuit of wealth and material gain. Others, most often those that are commonly regarded as renegades, may even remain loyal to the Emperor of Mankind, despite being regarded as traitors to the Imperium, while others still may choose to dedicate themselves to the Ruinous Powers out of anger or promises of power, becoming true Chaos Space Marines. To the Imperium, those who turn their backs upon the Emperor must feel the wrath of his divine judgment, and should Imperial forces discover a world that belongs to such heretics, it will typically be subjected to exterminatus. But could it be possible for any of these traitor Astartes to ever seek some form of redemption, or perhaps even reintegrate themselves back into the Imperium? While the Imperium will usually seek to destroy those chapters which had been deemed excommunicate traitoris, there have been certain instances where the High Lords of Terror will show some form of leniency, providing that the crimes of said chapters were not considered to be irredeemable. The most notable examples in this regard are shown with the Mantis Warriors, Lamenters, and Executioner chapters, who turned against the Imperium during the course of the Badab War. Following the culmination of this war, these 3 chapters will be offered the Emperor's forgiveness, providing that they embark upon a century-long crusade of penitence, where they will be tasked with fighting against the enemies of man whilst being forbidden from replenishing their losses, although these chapters would also be stripped of their homeworlds, at least for the duration of the crusade, as further punishment. Even the Sons of Malice would be offered the chance to redeem themselves for their cannibalistic traditions, subject to undertaking a 50-year penitent crusade, although their chapter master had refused to do so, stating that his warriors had committed no crime. However, once word of the chapter's murdering of an Inquisitor had reached Terra, the Sons of Malice would be completely excommunicated from the Imperium. Admittedly, it is far easier for a renegade space marine to find redemption when compared to one that has sworn allegiance to the Chaos Gods, due to such Astartes still being relatively uncorrupted in comparison to beings such as Plague Marines or Khorne Berserkers. One method for an individual Astartes to atone for any past sins would be by joining the Death Watch chapter as a Black Shield. Black Shields are individuals who have severed all ties to their parent chapter or legion, removing all forms of iconography from their armour, which in turn is painted black. The reasons for such warriors joining the Death Watch can range from a Black Shield simply being the last surviving member of their chapter, or choosing to abandon their battle brothers after they had turned from the Emperor in order to embrace the Chaos Gods. In the case of the latter, a Black Shield may join the Death Watch to expunge any guilt by association for the crimes of their parent chapter from their soul, proving that despite the actions of their former chapter, the Black Shield has remained a faithful and loyal servant of the Emperor. Should they be accepted into the ranks of the Death Watch, then these Black Shields will commit themselves to a life of penance in service to the Imperium, bringing the Emperor's wrath to the myriad of dangers that threaten humanity. Sometimes, their lifelong service can even grant the Black Shield the honour of being entombed within the catacombs of a Watch fortress, with their final actions reforging the bonds of brotherhood that they had once willingly severed. Other such renegade Astartes may find themselves in the employ of an Inquisitor, particularly those of a more radical persuasion, as such individuals are often prized for their physical prowess and skills. One such example of this was shown within the novel Atlas Infernal, where a tech marine of the Renegade Relictors chapter named Torquil would serve within the retinue of Inquisitor Remus Clute. So it seems that renegade Astartes, at the very least, can be absolved of their supposed sins. But what about those who had fallen into damnation? Could true Chaos Space Marines ever find some form of redemption? It is important to note that, despite being known colloquially as Chaos Space Marines, not all members of the Traitor Legions pay worship to the Ruinous Powers. For example, the warriors of the Night Lords, Alpha Legion, and Iron Warriors, despite the taint that had afflicted them due to spending prolonged periods of time within the depths of warp space, are known to have not fully succumbed to the succors of the Dark Gods, although some of their number have undoubtedly done so. Some members of the Alpha Legion, such as Occam the Untrue, the leader of the warband known as the Redacted, still regard themselves as loyal servants of the Emperor, as detailed within the novel Sons of the Hydra, seeking to help strengthen the Imperium against the predations of Chaos by purging it of weaklings. The majority of the Night Lords Legion, by comparison, seem to care little in regards to the Chaos Gods or the Imperium, with the Legion's warriors having become little more than pirates and marauders, raiding worlds and merchant ships alike for the purpose of material gain and for the sport of hunting down and torturing Imperial citizens. Even the actions of the Iron Warriors appear to be conducted seemingly out of spite for their loyalist cousins, and many of the Legion's warriors will even choose to amputate their own limbs should they begin showing signs of physical corruption or mutation, replacing them with cybernetic prostheses due to the majority of Iron Warriors being disgusted by such blessings. There have been a number of, admittedly rare instances, where the forces of the Imperium have allied themselves with a Traitor Legion warband in order to combat against an even greater threat. One such example of this was during the course of the War of the Beast, when an Iron Warriors warband under the command of Warsmith Calcator would be forced to ally themselves with both the loyalist Black Templars and Fists Exemplar chapters against the innumerable hordes of the Orc warlord known as the Beast, due to the Xenos proving to be a substantial threat to all of humanity. However, many of the Fists Exemplar, led by their acting first captain Zerberin, would ultimately turn traitor, swearing fealty to Calcator during the later years of the war. Not only this, but there have been some documented incidents where warriors from the Traitor Legions would return to the Imperial fold. During the course of the Horus Heresy, a force of Iron Warriors under the command of Narek Drager would turn against their Alpha Legion allies during the course of the Mazoan campaign, being swayed to the side of the Loyalists due to both the disgust that Drager felt towards the fact that his men were being used as little more than cannon fodder, and the words of the Salamander's dreadnought, Cassian Dracos. Following the aftermath of the campaign, Drager's forces would continue to fight alongside the Salamanders, with Drager himself becoming a close friend and confidant to Dracos. As for those traitor Astartes that have fully devoted themselves to one of the Chaos Gods, the path of salvation would appear to be much harder, if not completely impossible for them to walk. Those who bear the mark of one of the Chaos Gods will have often bargained their very soul to their chosen patron in exchange for power, glory, or wealth, and would from an initial glance appear to be incapable of finding redemption. Despite this, there has been, somewhat surprisingly, at least one recorded instance of a traitor Astartes that had been fully corrupted by the powers of chaos being able to somewhat atone for their sins. Within the story Demon Blood, Sergeant Castus of the Ultramarines would be transformed into a champion of Nurgle after being corrupted in both body and soul by the demon prince Parmenides. Sister Aescarion of the Order of the Ebon Chalice, who had witnessed Castus's turn to chaos, would spend many long years hunting the Astartes in order to grant him the absolution that death would bring, though Castus would manage to evade her wrath on more than one occasion. The two would eventually face off for the final time upon the bridge of Castus's ship, the Defixio, as Imperial forces sought to conduct exterminatus upon the world of Sarthia, which Parmenides had corrupted and claimed for Nurgle. After mortally wounding the corrupted Astartes, Aescarion would state the following to Castus.
You may think you cannot be forgiven, that you can never be part of humanity again. There is more than one path to redemption. Look at what the years have done to us both. They turned you into an animal. They forced my faith away from the commands of my order. But all that time has let me come to see that whatever happens here, you will never have the chance to change the galaxy again. You have an imagination. Use it. Change your path once more before you draw your last breath.
The wounded Plague Marine would then teleport back to Parmenides' sanctum, with the Demon Prince assuming that his champion had been successful in preventing the Imperium's attempts at exterminatus. However, against all odds, Castus would return to the Emperor's light, albeit briefly. Castus would reach into the wound that had been inflicted upon him by Aescarion, extracting a miniature cyclonic torpedo from his chest cavity and detonating it in the demon's presence, destroying both himself as well as the demon's physical form. Despite this final act of redemption, Castus would still be damned for all eternity, due to his soul still being bound to Nurgle, something that Aescarion herself would state to Castus before finally convincing him to turn against his master. As a result, while a champion of the Dark Gods may be swayed to turn against the gods in one last act of glorious righteousness, it would appear that their soul would still belong to their former patron. Because of this, many champions of chaos may simply choose to continue in their service to the Ruinous Powers, in hopes of not only avoiding eternal damnation and torture, but to obtain the ultimate reward of immortality and demonhood. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.